So, Warframe's latest hotfix for the Vallis Undermined dropped what would have been last night for me, thank you very much, time zones, and it actually targets the three things most of us were unhappy about with the update itself when it dropped. Recoil and screen shake, bounty pacing for those Aiyo farmers, and that whole damage attenuation mess where enemies like Demolists and Acolytes ended up with crazy amounts of attenuation. And then of course they changed it by removing attenuation from lots of enemies, and now there's even more changes being added. So let's take a quick no nonsense look at what the hotfix is bringing. So first up, aiming. DE have now split screen shake and weapon recoil back into separate options on PC. That means you aren't stuck with one jarring setting trying to do 5 things at once. You get to keep the classic screen shake toggle if you like it for those cinematic wobble moments, or turn it off if you don't. You get the new recoil type with 3 different settings. There is camera, which gives that bounce in the view without wrecking your aim line once you correct it, which is the default setting. Then there is the reticle setting, which brings back the little diamond that shows where shots are drifting to while the camera stays planted and doesn't move, which is great if you want info about where your recoil is going. I didn't like this at all. Then there is the reduced setting, which strips the whole thing back. There's no diamond, there is minimal movement, and there is a clean sight of, I guess, what you're aiming at. So if you hated the little diamond, maybe pick reduced and forget it ever existed. If you like visual feedback, I guess you can turn that back on. Entirely up to you. Either way, you finally have control back of your actual aiming reticle, which is great, because for the last week using my Trumna or any of the arc guns while checking out the changes and the arcanes being added to those, it was absolutely horrible. It felt like DE was trying to turn Warframe into something like CSGO, which just didn't fit. But if you do like the diamond, you can now use your custom HUD colours on it properly as well, so it's going to add that little bit of additional visual flair, because it was kind of hard to see that diamond when there was all of those visual effects on screen with explosions and damage numbers. At a lot of times I found it really hard to see where my actual diamond was. Now, it is worth noting that this change is for PC only right now, because it needed a code cert, so console folks will have to wait for the next cert update to be added for them to get the reticle changes as well. Now, next up is the bounty changes, right? That Aiyo farm that had a portion of the community quite upset as well. Now, DE have kept the objective randomizer, but they've chopped the dead time off a lot of the slow changes inside those bounties, so that if you get a bad roll of a bounty, it doesn't feel like a punishment. So on the plains, the resource theft dropped segment has been dropped from 2 minutes to 1 minute and 30. The liberation one goes from 2 minutes to 1 minute and 30. And on our Vallis, the rescue pickups now pull 30 seconds off the timer as well. And the coil drive hack is cut to 1 minute and 30. So basically, with a lot of the bounties on demos and in Fortuna and that as well, they are knocking up to 1 minute or 2 minutes or even 3 minutes of some of the bounty timers to make a lot of the bounties much quicker. So they've said the intent is to keep variety, so that while you can't chain the same bounty over and over again to make it incredibly fast, the worst time wasters inside those bounties has been trimmed, which means, like I said, more variety of bounties and less time waiting around. But I'll be honest, I wasn't really one of the players who did any of that Aiyo farming, so anyone in the comment section that did can let me know whether they see this as a happy compromise or not. I know you would still prefer to just keep running the fastest bounty possible in order to farm that Aiyo, but this does feel like a happy middle ground. Then of course we have the damage attenuation and enemy effective health changes, which were added last night as well. Now, the broad stroke for this is basically attenuation is basically out, and the places where it exposed paper thin elite enemies or boss kills has been tuned more properly. So maximum damage per shot was raised on enemies like Kuva Liches, Sisters of Parvos, and of course anything along those lines, so that single shot and hard hitting weapons feel like they're actually doing work instead of getting mysteriously capped. Skater Girl was another one who has had her attenuation swapped for a flat 90% damage reduction and a real health pool, so that she's not just kind of a meme kill, but she's also not a brick wall, so that again there's a happy middle ground. Eidolons got a big bump of time to kill back to where they were pre the Undermine update, and there is a couple of rare enemies tied to the Archimedia rules received health value bumps, so that they've gone from being able to be one shot to a mini boss level kind of enemy that is still very much killable. Now the goal here, they've said, is that your build matters, the power fantasy that you've built matters, and the elites don't feel either like sponges or confetti. Again, they're looking for a happy middle ground. Now, the patch had a few other things brought in, like changes to the UI, but also arcanes like Shotgun Vendetta can now be equipped on the Corvus or the Corvus Prime, and as well as the Mandonel, those archons, as well as Akimbo Slipshot being able to be equipped on the dual Decorians or the Prisma variant, those archons as well, because you couldn't prior to this update. Now, on top of this, the Deep Mine bounty credit caches have been moved up to 20,000 for normal bounties and 30,000 for Steel Path bounties, which, if you're a veteran, is still a pretty crap reward for a C rotation on any bounties, but it is better than the 10,000 or the 15,000 that they were before. But 30,000 as a C rotation, like I said, still feels like a bit of a crap price. Overall, large parts of the Vallis Undermined update didn't exactly land properly. It hasn't been the best update that we've had in the last 24 or 12 to 24 months, and the community did leave feedback, and DE have turned it around for the most part inside a week. Basically, they've listened, as they tend to do. Now, not every single complaint is gone, but the big three talking points have definitely been addressed, and maybe they're not finished addressing them. They might be tweaking the attenuation even further, or those bounties, we don't know. So for now, enjoy, I guess, having a steadier reticle, the bosses that die at a pace that hopefully matches your build, as well as that Aiyo farm if you're one of the players who enjoys that the most. Have a great day, have a great week. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of the changes, and as always, thanks for watching.